Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to tackle a really core question, I think, for anyone in media localization,
Hmm.
dubbing, subtitling. How do you actually price those services? We've got some, well, pretty sharp insights today.
Yeah, we do. They're drawn from Paolo Fontana's experience. He's
Mhm.
got, what, over 25 years in media and entertainment?
That's right. And big roles, too, at places like Technicolor, SDI Media, Ayuno. He knows media localization inside out.
And importantly for us today, he spent the last 11 years really deep in the pricing side of things,
Mm.
cost plus, value pricing.
Right.
He's lived it.
Exactly. So that's our deep dive today, getting into these two models, value versus cost plus.
Right.
Our mission to really understand them, specifically for dubbing and subtitling, and crucially, what Paolo's real-world experience tells us works best.
What actually happens on the ground?
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Just lay it out first.
Yeah.
What is cost plus pricing?
Sure. Cost plus is, well, pretty much what it sounds like. You figure out all your costs to produce something.
Like translator fees, actor fees, studio time, all that stuff, right?
Exactly. Engineering, project management.
Yeah.
You add all that up. Then you just stick a percentage markup on top. That's your profit.
So cost plus markup equals price. Simple formula.
Pretty much. It's focused on covering your expenses and making sure you get a profit margin. Very internal looking.
Got it. So if it costs you, say, $1,000 an hour to produce, you add your 20% margin, price is $1,200. Done.
In theory, yes.
Okay. So how does value pricing stack up against that? How's it different, especially in this media localization world?
Value pricing kind of flips the script. Instead of
Yep.
starting with your costs inside the company, you look outward.
Outward, to the client.
To the client, yeah, in the market. The price isn't based on your cost. It's based on the perceived value the localization brings to the client.
Perceived value. Okay, what does that actually mean? What factors go into that?
It can be a mix of things, like the quality you deliver, obviously, how fast you can turn it around.
Speed's often huge.
Definitely. Also, how complex the original show or movie is. The strategic importance of that language or market for the client.
Ah, right. Like launching a flagship show in Japan versus maybe a smaller market.
Exactly. And ultimately, what's the potential ROI for them? How much will good localization help their business? That's the core of value pricing.
Okay, so one's looking inwards at the books, the other's looking outwards at the client's potential benefit. Let's dig into cost plus a bit more first. What are the upsides? Why do people use it?
Well, Paolo points out a big one. Transparency and simplicity. It's, relatively easy math.
Calculate costs, add the percentage, yeah.
Right. So that makes internal budgeting easier. Forecasting feels more straightforward. Everyone kind of gets it.
That predictability must be appealing. Any other pros?
Well, theoretically, it ensures you make a profit on every job, assuming your cost tracking is actually accurate, which isn't always simple.
True, costing can get tricky.
But yeah, you add that margin, you should make money.
Yeah.
And Paolo also mentioned it's often easier to justify internally.
Ah, because you can point to the cost sheet. Here's the cost, here's our standard markup.
Exactly. It feels objective, less arguing, maybe.
And are there specific situations where cost plus actually works pretty well for dubbing and subtitling?
Paolo suggests it can be okay for, really standardized stuff. High volume, simple projects where the process is just nailed down.
Like bulk orders of very similar content.
Yeah, think basic corporate videos or something repetitive. If it's highly commoditized work, cost plus might be efficient enough for pricing.
Okay, so it has its place for the routine stuff, but I'm guessing there are some major downsides, especially given Paolo's focus later.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where Paolo really leans in, the biggest issue. It totally ignores the market.
What the client's actually willing to pay.
Exactly. Or the real value you're providing. Think about it. You could be massively underpricing a really critical high-value project for a major client just because your internal costs are low.
Right, like that flagship series launch example. The value to the streamer is huge, way beyond just your production cost plus 20%.
Precisely. Or, flip side, you could be overpricing in a really competitive market where everyone's fighting on price and lose the deal because your cost plus number is too high.
So you're disconnected from the market reality. That sounds risky. What else?
Another point he makes, which is interesting, it can actually discourage efficiency.
How so?
Well, if your profit is just a fixed percentage of your costs, what's the big incentive to slash those costs?
Yeah. If costs go up, your price goes up, and your absolute profit dollar amount goes up too, even if the percentage stays the same.
Right. There's less internal drive to innovate, streamline, find cheaper ways if your profit structure kind of rewards higher costs, in a way.
That seems counterintuitive, but I
Yeah.
see the logic. And does it make it harder to stand out?
Definitely. How do you justify charging more for, say, amazing quality or super fast delivery or incredible cultural nuance if your price is just based on your internal cost structure?
Yeah, it doesn't really let you sell your strengths.
It risks turning localization into a commodity, where the only thing clients look at is the bottom line price.
And that leads to,
Price wars. Palo's seen it. If everyone's just doing cost plus, it becomes a race to the bottom on margins. Not healthy for anyone.
okay, so potentially leaves money on the table, disincentivizes efficiency, makes it hard to differentiate, and can lead to price wars. Doesn't sound ideal for strategic growth.
Not really. And you miss huge revenue opportunities on those projects where the client would pay more for the value you bring.
All right, let's pivot then. Value pricing. What are the big advantages here for dubbing and subtitling providers?
The number one advantage, and Palo hammers this home based on his experience, is maximizing profitability. Simple as that.
Because you're capturing more of the value you create.
Exactly. You align your price with what it's actually worth to the client, not just what it costs you to make. That difference can be significant profit.
Sounds much more strategic. What other benefits does it bring?
It forces you, or maybe encourages you, to differentiate. To use value pricing well, you have to understand and articulate your unique value proposition.
Like, what makes us special?
Right. Is it our talent pool, our speed, our tech, our understanding of, say, Japanese gaming culture? You need to know that and sell it.
So it shifts the focus from just production to outcomes and expertise.
Totally. And that means you must understand your client's needs much more deeply.
Their business goals, who they're trying to reach.
Yeah, why is this content important to them? What are they trying to achieve in this market? It requires real partnership, not just being a supplier.
And if you can successfully communicate that value, show how you help them succeed.
Then you can position yourself as a premium provider. Value pricing supports that. You can justify higher prices because you're delivering higher demonstrable value.
Which I imagine then fuels further investment.
It creates a great cycle, Paolo notes. Delivering value justifies higher prices, which gives you resources to invest in better talent, tech, processes, which lets you deliver even more value.
A virtuous cycle. Sounds great in principle, but what are the catches? What makes value pricing hard?
Well, it's definitely more complex than cost plus. That's the first hurdle Paolo mentions. Figuring out and quantifying value isn't easy. It takes real market insight, deep client conversations, sophisticated thinking. It's not just running numbers on a spreadsheet.
You need a different skill set, maybe? More strategic?
Yes. And you need strong sales and marketing. People who can actually sell the value, communicate it effectively, and justify that premium price.
Because if you can't explain why it's worth more,
Clients might just see it as subjective or arbitrary. Why are you charging so much? You need solid justification tied to their benefits.
and is there a risk of getting it wrong, like overestimating the value?
Absolutely. Misjudge the client's perception of value, price it too high, and you lose the deal. That's always a risk. You need to be tuned in.
So getting that value assessment right is crucial. Any other challenges Paolo saw?
Internal resistance can be a thing too.
From who? Sales teams.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sales teams might be used to the simplicity of cost plus. Just tell me the cost, I'll add the markup. Value selling requires more effort, more skill maybe. So you might get pushback.
Okay, so it needs buy-in across the organization. Let's really tap into Paolo's direct experience now. He's been at the sharp end of this for, 11 years actively? What are his big takeaways?
Well, one key thing he observed is that cost plus is often the starting point for companies.
Because it seems easier.
Yeah, easier to implement, and maybe more importantly, easier for top management to understand. That direct cost to profit link feels tangible.
Feels safe, maybe.
Could be. But, and this is crucial, while he absolutely stresses you need accurate cost data for human work, AI, across all your languages and regions, like over 40 jurisdictions he dealt with.
So knowing your costs is non-negotiable.
Totally essential.
Yeah.
But he strongly warns against just using that cost data to set your selling price via cost plus.
Because
Because his experience overwhelmingly shows that value and market price are the real keys to maximizing profit.
So cost informs, but value decides.
That's a good way to put it. He found value pricing consistently allowed them to set prices higher than cost plus would have suggested, leading to much better margins.
And he actually put a formula to this, didn't he? The positive value pricing effect.
Yeah, he did. It's basically volume like runtime minutes times the difference between the value price you achieved and what your cost plus price would have been.
Value price cost plus price X volume. Shows the extra margin gain.
Exactly. It quantifies that upside potential.
But he also talked about the damage of using cost plus when it prices you above the market value.
Right. If your calculated cost plus price is actually higher than what the market perceives as the value, you just lose the work.
And you lose the potential profit from that job entirely.
Precisely. He quantifies that lost margin too. Volume times the difference between the market's value price and your actual cost per minute. That's the profit you left on the table because your cost plus price was uncompetitive.
So cost plus can hurt you by underpricing or overpricing relative to value.
It's a double-edged sword if you rely on it blindly, and Paolo saw this play out directly.
What did he see happen?
He shared experiences where implementing value pricing led directly to, well, significant growth. Revenue up, margins up, bigger share of client budgets. Real positive results.
That sounds compelling.
But he also saw the opposite. Instances where senior management insisted on sticking to cost plus.
And the result?
Lost projects, lost customers, reduced market share, lower contribution margins. Real negative consequences from sticking to the old model when the market dictated otherwise.
Wow, that's stark. So his fundamental message seems to be cost knowledge is vital groundwork, but cost plus pricing as the main strategy is a major hindrance.
Absolutely. It caps your profitability, potentially shrinks your market share. Your cost accounting should inform pricing, not dictate it. Value and market reality should drive the final number.
And he noted again that senior management sometimes resists value pricing.
Yeah, he observed that pushback, often because it feels more complex or subjective compared to the apparent clarity of cost plus.
Which loops back to why cost plus is often the default, despite its flaws. That perceived simplicity.
But as Paolo's experience shows, that simplicity can be very, very costly in the long run.
Okay, so wrapping this up. It feels like a clear picture emerges. Cost plus in dubbing and subtitling. It offers maybe some initial simplicity, transparency, okay, for very standard stuff.
But it's fundamentally disconnected from the market, can stifle efficiency, and really limits your potential.
Whereas value pricing, while yeah, it's more complex, needs deeper client understanding, stronger selling skills.
It focuses squarely on the worth you deliver. And as Paolo's seen firsthand, that's where the real potential for higher profits and sustainable growth lies.
Understanding that trade-off seems absolutely critical for anyone pricing these services.
Couldn't agree more. It's a strategic choice with big implications.
So a final thought for everyone listening. How well do you understand the perceived value of what you do or the services you buy? Are you maybe too focused on just the cost? Could shifting that focus, really digging into the value, unlock better outcomes? What are those value levers you might be overlooking right now? Something to definitely chew on. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.